Chapter 4. Mr. Cuss interviews the stranger. Everything was normal before club festival except two odd incidents. Although there were many fights for domestic discipline with Mrs. Hall, but as he paid punctually his fine, it was normal. Mr. Hall didn't like him, so he avoided him as much as possible. The stranger did not go to church and made no difference between Sunday and irreligious days. He worked very irregularly. Sometimes he would come down early, while sometimes he would sleep for late hours in the morning. His communication with uh, mm, his communication was limited to the village. His temper was uncertain. He seemed under chronic irritation of greatest intensity. In the evening, he would go out without bothering the weather and chose loneliest and shady paths. Once Teddy Henry was scared shamefully by his skull like head. The children didn't like him, and he too disliked them. Because of his remarkable appearance, he was a frequent topic in Iping. Mrs. Hall was asked about his occupation. She carefully explained that he was an experimental investigator. He discovered things. He had an accident which discolored his face and hands. As he is sensitive, he avoids any public notice of it. Several opinions formed for him. One was out of the brain of Mr. Henry that he was a criminal trying to escape. Mr. Gold, the probationary assistant in the National School, thought that he was an anarchist. An anarchist is a person of political belief that there should be little or no formal organization, but people should work freely together. That's what an anarchist is. So he thought that he is an anarchist in disguise. One opinion was formed by following Mr. Fearenside that he was a piebald. Yet another view explained him as a harmless lunatic. Lunatic is someone who behaves in a silly or dangerous way. Early April events made another thought of him as a supernatural, but everyone disliked him for sure. Cuss, the general practitioner, was filled with curiosity and was finding an opportunity to talk to the stranger. He was surprised to know that Mr. Hall didn't know his guest's name. Mrs. Hall described that he told his name, but it was so singular that she forgot it. Cuss intruded into the parlor. Mrs. Hall heard a murmur of voices, then a cry of surprise, a stirring of feet, a chair flung aside, a bark of laughter, quick steps to the door, and Cuss appeared, his face white, his eyes staring over his shoulder. He ran out without looking at her and hurried along the road. Mrs. Hall heard the stranger laughing quietly. She heard footsteps coming across the room, but she could see no one, and the door was slammed. Cuss went to vicar, priest in the church, asking him if he was mad. He asked something to drink. Then he told him of the interview he just had. He entered and demanded subscription for the nurse fund. The stranger kept on sniffing frequently, which showed that he had caught on infernal cold. The stranger told him that he would think about the subscription. He asked him about his research. He replied that it's a damnable long research. He got quite across it. Cuss was grieved that the man was upset, and his question made him even more upset. Stranger had been given a prescription, and he asked if it was medical. Stranger got angry and asked for what he was fishing after. Cuss apologized. Soon a draught of air lifted the paper towards the chimney, and the stranger rushed towards it and removed it from the chimney. To illustrate, the stranger took out his arm, which was actually an empty sleeve. There was nothing in it to show. He put his sleeve back into the pocket. Cuss mentioned that how he could move the empty sleeve. The stranger moves toward the Cuss and shows him the same sleeve again. Cuss mentioned that he felt exactly a finger and a thumb pinching his nose, but he could see nothing. Vicar laughed upon hearing this. He said that he left the room hitting his cuff hard. He added that he felt like hitting an arm, but there was no arm. Mr. Bunting, that is Vicar, emphasized that it was the most remarkable story that he had ever listened to. And that's all.